Do you want to talk about your mental health? Well, you've come to the right place. I'm your host. You can call me Horse. Why the long face?
Hello, and you're very welcome back to another episode of Why the Long Face, a podcast with me, Horse O'Keefe. What am I talking about this week? Well, I'm talking about the idea of constantly fucking things up. Now, that's not me being harsh on myself and saying, oh, I've fucked up my whole life. I'm not even remotely saying that. What I'm getting at is, there's certain things that we do all the time. So, for example, I do this podcast a lot. I sat down last night to try and record this podcast. Did it go well? Absolutely not. I kept fucking up. And now, most of you probably know I can't speak at the best of times. But being able to speak is a fairly integral part of doing a podcast. So, I abandoned it for the evening. I was like, you know what? This isn't working. To the point that this is why the day after I have changed the topic of the podcast to discuss my entire night last night. So we're going to go through that. We're going to talk about what happens when you get stressed. What happens when something that you normally do is not working the way it normally does. As well as all the other lovely bits. We'll have movie of the week. We'll have straight from the horse's mouth. We won't have Jambon's corner because Jambon is no longer with us. But for anyone who knows Jambon, he was a very, very important part of this podcast for a few months, and I would just like to give him a little shout out because he passed his driving test this week, and you know what? That's pretty fucking cool. So I know that he probably can't hear, and I know you probably won't because I don't know where you listen to the podcast, but give Jambon a virtual round of applause. Obviously, if you're driving or doing something with your hands, please don't clap because obviously I don't want to be the cause of someone injuring themselves. So I sat down last night. I did out my few little notes, and I'm genuinely very, very excited about the topic that I was going to discuss. That will now be a future podcast. And it just, for some reason, it just wasn't working. It was an awful lot of me going, and I felt like I was tongue-tied, and I just couldn't get sentences out. Sentences that in my brain were right, were coming out all wrong. And it just wasn't working, and I was getting very stressed and very annoyed, which then made for a bad recording. And like, obviously the whole point of this podcast is it's supposed to be me trying to chat, and if I'm all stressed and I'm all angry and I'm talking very, very sour, that's not going to come across the best. So like I said, I abandoned it. I don't want to say gave up, because gave up is obviously kind of sounds very negative and has very negative connotations. I did not give up. What I did do is take a sit back and be like, okay, this is not working for me. Why is it not working? And what is the best solution moving forward? I could have sat here for another hour, 2 hours last night, trying to record, trying to get it out, and I would have ended up more frustrated, and then at the end, I would not have been happy with the product, so I would have had to re-record anyway. Just because you're used to doing something does not mean that it's not going to go wrong. And this goes for absolutely anything. You could have cooked the same dinner 40 times in your life, more, and one evening it just might not go right for you. You could have played guitar all your life, and then you'll go to try and play a song and you'll just keep messing up a part. You know, like, you could be really, really used to delivering presentations, and one day you'll go and do it and it just won't work, and you'll be like me last night and trying to talk and fucking up and falling over yourself, and every possible thing will go wrong. Is it frustrating? 110%. Yes, it is. Doesn't mean that we're broken. No. Doesn't mean that we're no longer good at the thing that we once thought we were good at. No, absolutely not. Lads, I've said it loads of times, the brain is such a complex thing, and it's 90% of the time what you are thinking about in like the forefront of your brain, say, and what is going on in the background. You have no idea. Like, you could have 10 things on your mind. I can guarantee you there's 100 times more things going on in the background of your brain that you don't even realise. Sometimes you just have to, again, it's about taking that step back from the situation. Whether you physically step back or you just mentally step back, I genuinely find that physically moving myself out of the situation genuinely helps. And you just have to be kind to yourself and be realistic with yourself. And again, anything I say today is the same as anything I ever say. I'm not saying groundbreaking stuff here. I'm not saying new stuff. It's all stuff that's there. It's all stuff the majority of us know. And I would go as far as to say that if your friend was going through the same issue, this would be the stuff that you would say to your friend. So why don't you do it for yourself? Because effectively it's the exact same thing. And again, obviously lads, everyone's life is different. The reason why I might be struggling to do something could be totally different to the reason why you're struggling to do something. For example, I started my new job on Monday. I feel like I've said that more this year than I have said in any other year. But look, I started a new job. Delighted to be in the job. It's the place I'm working in is honestly one of the most amazing places I have ever come across in my entire life, to the point that I probably don't think I'll ever leave. Maybe I will, who knows. But it's honestly, it's so amazing, and I'm really excited for the job. You know, and again, this is all just my perspective and from my viewpoint on the last few weeks. There has been a lot of change. I've moved out from one house into a new house. I'm meeting new people. I'm also spending a lot of time with friends I've had for years. You know, I had started one job, then I left that job. Now I've started a new job. I haven't really gotten myself into a routine yet. And I know that it's been over a month, and that's totally fine. But it's baby steps that I need to be taken. So what that I don't have a routine? Why the fuck does that matter? I'm getting up every day, I'm living my life. I'm not doing no harm to anyone. But I had decided this week that I wanted to get into a routine, and this week was probably not the best week to be trying to get into a routine, because again, lots of change. My fucking brain is all over the shop. I don't know, am I coming or going, or what am I doing at all? And that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it at all. But I had decided, no, that's it. And Wednesday is podcast day, and it doesn't matter how tired I am, I have to do the podcast this evening. Realistically, ye have absolutely no idea when I record this. I could be doing all of this 12 o'clock the night before the podcast is due out. Ye would have absolutely no idea. But in my head, podcast day is Wednesday, and that's it, and it has to be done on Wednesday. And if I don't do it on Wednesday, then I've fucked up, and I'm lazy, and I'm this, and I'm that, and I'm the other. So already within that space of me trying to record the podcast, before I even got to doing the podcast, there was already anger towards myself for being apparently lazy. There was a bit of sadness that I couldn't just chill out, even though that's all I wanted to do. I'd had a day at work. We were doing a lot of online training and stuff. It was very dense. It was very draining. I won't lie. All I wanted to do was have a sleep. And again, absolutely nothing wrong with that. And then there was a bit of apathy coming in as well. Now, again, apathy might not be something that people necessarily know the definition of off the top of their head. Basically, apathy is like a lack of interest or a lack of enthusiasm for anything. So that was already 3 emotions that probably are not the best or the most constructive towards what it was that I was going doing. And if you're already in a bad headspace before you go and do something, that in itself is going to affect the outcome of whatever it is you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're a seasoned professional or a total newbie to whatever it is, playing guitar, doing a podcast, writing a book. I don't know. But you have to be in the right headspace, especially for doing something anyway creative or anything that takes up brain power. That's kind of my first point, is that before you go and do something, make sure you are in the right headspace. And if you're not, it is totally fine to say, no, I'm not able for that. For example, you're supposed to be cooking dinner, and I'm going doing loads of meal prep now, and I'm going making an unreal dinner and like 40,000 ingredients and the whole lot, and I'm going to chop everything and do everything separate and mix it and the whole lot, whatever it is you're making. I don't know what I'm trying to make there in my head. I've done about 40 different steps that probably aren't necessary. But if you're not in the right headspace, 1, you're going to rush, and it won't be nice. 2, you're probably going to leave out steps, and for a recipe, steps are fucking important. 3, you might end up causing injury to yourself. That might be physical or mental, I don't know. Again, I tend to use dinners as an analogy quite a lot. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just hungry all the time. But then, say you haven't caught it. Say you haven't caught that you're not necessarily in the right frame of mind for going doing what you're doing, and you start into it. All that's going to happen is whatever those emotions are, they're going to become amplified. So in my situation last night, again, I got more sad, I got more angry, and I lost even more enthusiasm than I already did not have. The last thing that you want to do is take any of those emotions and make them worse, to amplify them, to make them even more present in your head than they already are. And the other point that I have to make on all of this is, depending on the situation, you do not necessarily have to stop doing it. Now, this part isn't strictly relevant to my situation last night, because in fairness, there's only really one way that you can record a podcast, and that's sit down and talk. I was unable to speak, so that was kind of the whole premise just kind of fucked on its head. However, your situation might be different. So, you're in the middle of it. Everything's gone wrong. Can you flip the situation around? Can you take what you're doing and change it slightly so that you'll still get an outcome? You'll still have done something. Maybe it's just the way that you're trying to do it does not work for you. Okay? So, think about it. If I write a short story, okay? Something very, very simple now. A man wakes up. He puts on his clothes. He goes to the shop. He buys bread. He buys milk. He buys ham. He goes to the park. He makes a sandwich. He eats it. He walks home. Right? Something extremely simple. If I gave that to 20 people and told them, make a film out of that, just a very short film, you can be guaranteed that the man would look different, the clothes he wears would look different, his bedroom would look different, the shop would be different, the park would be different. Even something as simple down to the way that man cuts his sandwich would be different. No, I'm not saying there's 20 ways to cut a sandwich, but again, the point, that situation itself that I describe is very simple. But everyone is different. Everyone has their own viewpoints. Everyone has their own ways of visualizing things and doing things. So, I would happily sit down and watch 20 short films of that story. It might be boring, but it would be so interesting to see the way that different people's brains work. I hope I haven't lost you. I hope you're still with me. So, the best example that I have for this, I've gotten very into playing music, and more so as I continue to do it. I've been playing now for probably about 2 years and singing and songwriting and the whole lot. The song Tennessee Whiskey became very big, and I really wanted to learn it. But I'm aware of my own skills. I'm aware that I'm not fantastic on guitar. I can do basic chords, I can do enough to get me by, and I'm very happy with the point of playing guitar that I'm at. However, I also really wanted to learn Tennessee Whiskey, and for the life of me, I could not get it. I watched I don't know how many tutorials, and I was trying to get it right, and then I might learn the chords, but then the chords wouldn't necessarily suit my singing voice, or I couldn't necessarily sing it because I was trying to imitate Chris Stapleton and the way he does it, because that's kind of how the song got big. And it's very simple. I was chatting with someone one day and they were like, why don't you just do it your own way? And again, that as a notion is not groundbreaking. It is not a new concept. But Jesus Christ, my whole fucking world turned upside down. My eyes were blasted open. I was like, oh my fucking God, you're right. So I did. I figured out the chords. I figured out different chords that sound like the song. I figured out my own way of playing it, and now it is one of my most favourite things to play, and I found it in a way that my voice sounds better, I can sing it in a different way. It, like, you'd be halfway through the song maybe before you might realise what the song is, and I fucking love it. All because I changed it round. I changed it, I changed my perspective, I changed my viewpoint on what it was that I was trying to do. I still got the outcome. I can now say I can sing and play Tennessee Whiskey. Is it the exact same as the original? No, it's not. But is my statement wrong? No, it's not. So if you're trying to do something and it's not working for you, again, take that step back. You have two options. Well, technically you have three. Two are good, one is not good. Your options are keep going, keep flogging on, making yourself feel worse and not being happy with the outcome, regardless of what it is. 2, you can take that moment, take a step back and be like, okay, this is not working for me this evening, I will try again tomorrow. Or you can take a look at the situation and see, okay, how can I flip this round to work better for me? What is it that I'm struggling with? Where are my strengths? Where can I go from here? There's plenty of options, lads. I know people say great minds think alike. They don't. Great minds don't think alike, because great mind thinks alike basically kind of feeds into this notion that in order to do something good or do something great, you have to think it the same as all the other people who have done good things. Then is that not one, it kind of sounds like a bit of a cult. And 2, it's just a bit fucked up because it basically means that only people on the top have the perspectives that we should be listening to. No, fuck that. We need perspectives from absolutely everyone. Like I said, go back to the short film. If I had done 20 short films, or watched 20 short films of that little thing that I described, and they were all the same, that would be boring as fuck. If everyone had the same linear thinking, the world would be so fucking boring. If you don't think the same as everyone else, that makes you more of an individual, and that makes you entirely more interesting to me anyway. Or that notion of, oh guys, you have to think outside the box. What's wrong with inside the box? Why does it have to be a box at all? Why can't it be a rhombus? And why can't you think at the very tippy top of the rhombus? Why does it have to be think this way, do this? All the great people think alike. Do they fuck? Right, we'll take a break from me shiting on about being grumpy and being stressed and not being able to do things. Do you know what else I did this week? I watched a movie, which probably doesn't come as a surprise, but here you are, lads, it's movie of the week.
I watched a film this week, I ain't gonna talk about it. Movie of the week.
So, as it is October, and October is spooky season, I am going to push myself out of my comfort zone, and I'm going to try and watch some more horror movies, and at least make the movie of the week slightly themed to the month. So, I watched a horror film. I don't like horror films, they make me feel very uneasy. I understand that is the purpose of a horror film, it's just not really for me. But I'm doing it for ye, so I hope ye feel blessed. So the film I watched is called Talk to Me. It's an Australian horror film. It's basically around this group of friends, and they have this hand, like this cast of a hand. Apparently it belonged to a psychic, and when they hold the hand and say talk to me, they see a dead person basically, and then they say let me in, and the dead person inhabits their body and kind of like possesses them for a few minutes, and they get like a mad rush of it, and everyone else in the room can see the body being possessed. So as a concept, it's kind of generic, I won't lie. I did actually genuinely enjoy it. It was good, for the simple fact that, yes, obviously there was a couple of those stupid fucking jump scares which I cannot stand because I think they're just lazy writing. But for the most part, you weren't actually really seeing the dead person. You weren't seeing anything too madly, traditionally scary, I suppose. You weren't seeing people madly done up in makeup. You did see them throughout the film, but you didn't see him every single time. What you saw more was the teenager being possessed. So, in fairness, for one thing, like, all the teenage actors who were being possessed did a very, very good job of being possessed. It was almost like for them, they were kind of playing 2 or 3 characters within the same film. Without giving away too much, there was a couple of bits that were very kind of heavy hitting. There was one moment where I genuinely was slightly tearing up, not out of fear, just genuinely out of proper raw emotion. Would I recommend it? Yeah, it's grand, it's fine. Again, I don't really let myself get too enveloped in horror films because of the fact that I know I'm going to get scared, and then when I jump I feel like an awful bollocks. Again, I'm fully aware that's the whole point of a horror film. They're just not really the first thing I'd go for. But I'm trying to branch myself out. I'm trying to push myself out there. I'm trying to do things for ye lads, so that I'm not always just talking about this is another film that made me cry. To be fair, over the course of the next month, I could probably watch a horror film that'll make me cry out of sheer terror. I don't know. If you do have any suggestions for some actual, genuinely scary horror films, I promise I will do my best to actually watch them. But there you go, talk to me. It was quite good. It was quite enjoyable. It can be quite hard to get into because it is an Australian cast. So there's a lot of like Australian references that might go over your head at first, but once you're in the film for a few minutes, you kind of get used to the accents and the way they're talking, what they're kind of saying. There is also one child actor in particular that's in it, and he does a fucking phenomenal job. I can't fault him on that. He genuinely does a very, very, very good job. Look, lads, give it a go if you're stuck for something to watch this spooky season. Give it a go. You might enjoy it more than I did if you are mad into horror films. Also, slight detour, it's not even a movie, it's a TV show, but I started watching a bit of Naked Attraction. Not because I'm a pervert, not because I like it looking at willies and boobs and all them sorts of things on the television. It just as a show genuinely baffles me, like the concept of it. It's entertaining 110%, but there's 2 things. One, I'm all for people putting themselves out there and pushing themselves beyond their kind of comfort zones and all of that. But at the same time, I would not get my lad out on the television. I know I nearly did, but that was for acting, and that's different because I would have got paid for it. These people don't get paid because I looked it up. I did research. You don't get paid for being on Naked Attraction. You don't get paid for the pleasure of getting your bits and bobs out on the TV. But the fact that some of these people are like, hi, my name is Chris, I work in an office, I'm really shy. I'm like, at the same time, you can't really be that shy if you're getting your cock and balls out on the television. But maybe that's me being judgy. Secondly, I would genuinely would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when whoever came up with the concept of this TV show went into Channel 4 and pitched it. So again, for anyone who doesn't know, TV shows or movies and all that, they have to get pitched to the studios. So you have to walk in with like a presentation effectively and be like, this is the concept, this is why we're making it, please give me the budget. So someone walked into Channel 4 and was like, right, so basically there's these 6 boxes and there's 6 people and they're butt ass naked inside, and then there's one person and they get to look at them all. As the rounds go on, you get to see more. You see the cock and balls, or you see the foo-foo, or whatever it is that you call it. You get to see the boobs and the nipples, and you get to see their face, and then you get to hear them speak. And sometimes they do weird tasks like whisk eggs or do a little dance. And then they whittle it down to 2, and then the person that's deciding, they take their clothes off, and then they come out naked, and then there's just 3 naked people there staring at each other, and then the contestant will pick one of the other people to go on a date with. They go on a date, and then 9 times out of 10 they don't get on, and then there's a very awkward couch conversation afterwards. But obviously when they go on the date, they have their clothes on. Now that's a very bad description of the TV show, 110%, but also, like, what's the better way of pitching that? And again, I'm sorry, but I've gone very in depth now about naked attraction, but it's just I can't help think of all these situations. What if, right, a couple genuinely met on that TV show? Like, you get introduced to a couple, and normally one of the first questions that you get asked was, oh, how'd you meet? So you meet this couple, maybe you start working with one of them, and then you go on a night out, and you meet this guy and his partner. And you're like, oh, how did you meet? And they say, well, he picked me out of 6 people, and he just really liked the look of my naked body the best. Like, that's just a bit weird. Or, even to go so far as the couple often get married, and you're doing a speech. What are you supposed to say? I remember the first time I saw Craig, I thought that his cock and balls were the best thing that I've ever seen, and I knew that he was the one for me. Is that supposed to be the speech that gets your eye watering and makes you cry? I don't think so. But again, I've probably spent way too much time on this now, so we're gonna go back to me talking about mental health things instead of cocks and balls. So in essence, what I'm trying to get at is, when we're trying to do these tasks, we're doing these things that we've done hundreds of times before, and we're not able to do them for whatever reason. It's coming from a place, at least what I think is, it's coming from a place of we're totally overwhelmed. You're not necessarily overwhelmed by the task at hand. The task at hand is something easy. It's something that we know what to do because we've done it loads of times before. The kind of phrasing I'm gonna use for this is your conscious brain and your unconscious brain. Now, again, this is just my way of wording things. It's probably not scientifically correct. In this situation, your conscious brain is, right, I'm here, I'm trying to cook this dinner, I know what I'm doing, I know the steps, I know what I've done, I'm doing it 100 times, done it all my life. Right, we'll start. Your conscious brain is everything that you're thinking about in the forefront of your brain. Your unconscious brain is what's going on in the background. It's everything from your day at work. It's everything over the last couple of days, last couple of weeks, last couple of months, your fucking entire life, depending on what point of your mental health journey you're at. Okay? If you're struggling to do something, or you're just in a space of feeling extremely overwhelmed, there's a very high chance that it's not necessarily because of the situation that you're in. It's because of something that's going on in your unconscious brain. It's something else ticking away in the background that is fucking pissing you off, or has you full of anxiety, or you're just wondering, why the fuck did that happen? Why is this happening? Right? Firstly, I'm here to tell you, there is absolutely nothing wrong with feeling overwhelmed. At all. Like, at all. I know that this podcast in particular, this episode, has been very full of like analogies and kind of different ways of describing things, but I'm going to throw another one at you, because, you know, if you throw enough shit at a wall, eventually something will stick. Think of your head. Think of it like your computer desktop. So like when you open up your computer or your laptop at work, your desktop is covered. It is completely unorganized. It's got icons everywhere. There's fucking things flashing left, right, and center. Right? So how the fuck are you supposed to do a simple task when you don't even know where to start? When there's flashing and it's a total fucking mess. Now, I'm not for a second describing any of you as total messes. You're all beautiful, beautiful creatures, and I love every single one of you. It's just an analogy. This is where you take that step back and you rethink it, and you think, okay, am I in the most productive mode possible? Is the way I'm doing this the most productive way that I can do this, feeling how I feel? Like, we all have those bad days or those bad moments where you're just trying to do something normal and it's just not working, and you just get so frustrated. And I'm very bad. Like, the smallest things will fucking piss me off, and I'll have to walk away, or else I'd be sour for the whole entire day. So take that time, take that step back, see, okay, what is going on? What are all the things that are flashing? Why is everything so unorganized? Can I organize it? Can I put things into little folders? Because I'm not for a second saying that if you're struggling to cook your dinner, you have to have a sit down and a whole fucking counselling session and sort out all your problems before you go back to try and cook the dinner. Obviously not. I'm saying, is it possible to put things into different folders? To get to a point where at least when you open up that desktop, it's clean, it's organized. And then when you feel ready, you can go into those folders and you can tackle all those issues or access all those issues and have a think about them and take them at your own pace. And then when you can't, or when you're done, you close down the folder again. They're still there, but they're not at the forefront of your brain, at your mind. They're not at you. It's about flipping around that script. You're giving yourself the power. You're not giving your mental health the power. You're saying, I will access you, I will come, I will think about you, I will deal with you in my own time when I feel ready. But right now is not the time for me to deal with you. Now again, that's not me saying that you push everything to the back of your mind and never deal with it. That is obviously not a very productive way of dealing with your mental health. But it is okay to say, right now is not the right time for me to access this, to deal with this. Because when you're overwhelmed, your main focus is, how do I be not overwhelmed? Because if you don't, there's only so much your brain can take in before it'll just burst, and all then you'll want to do is sleep all day and shut yourself off and not talk to anyone, and you won't have the capacity for dealing with anyone or anything. But now at this stage you're probably sick of hearing from me, so we're going to hear from one of ye. That fucking rhymed. Unreal. It's straight from the horse's mouth.
Do you have a question or a topic you want to talk about? Here's your chance, it's straight from the horse's mouth.
So, this week we have a message from Jennifer. If you have a situation that really angers or upsets you, how do you deal with it in that moment without letting yourself get out of control? So, firstly, fair play, Jennifer, because you seem to have picked a question that is actually genuinely extremely relevant to the kind of topic that we're discussing. Surprisingly enough, I know I might have possibly mentioned this before, but I actually do have quite a bad temper. I can fly off the handle quite easily, not necessarily at people. Very rare do I lose my temper at a person, but like, again, say sitting down recording a podcast, if something's not going right, or even recording a video for TikTok, anything like that, if I'm not getting it, there's an awful lot of me going, oh for fuck's sake, and you're that really tense, like your whole body goes into just like fucking solid mode. So I do actually have a few little tips or tricks, both kind of things you can do instantly or things that I genuinely find really good for getting my anger out. Number one, very, very obvious, take deep breaths. It genuinely works. I know that it's probably the one thing that you don't want to do, but it genuinely does. A big deep breath, even one. Obviously I'd prefer if you did multiple, but you know, start with one, just one very big in through the nose, out through the mouth breath. Because at the very least, that is stopping you from instantly reacting. Because that's what we do when we're upset, when we're angry or upset, and we say someone has angered us or upset us, we react instantly. And 9 times out of 10 we say something that we kind of regret and we didn't necessarily want to say, or it comes out in the wrong way. That's not going to help the situation. If anything, it's just going to exacerbate the situation and make things 110 times worse. So take that deep breath. If it's a situation with another person involved, there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, I can't talk about this right now, I can't handle this right now, I'm not in the right space to discuss this right now, can I take 5 minutes? If the other person doesn't understand that, then look, that's just unfortunate that they're a piece of shit. Sorry, that's probably a bit harsh, but like, you have to be honest. You have to be honest with the person. You have to be honest with yourself. You do not discuss a situation of any sort when you're in a highly emotional state, because it's not going to go the way you want it to. You have to be clear in your brain and be able to kind of have a clear thought process and know what you're saying and making sure that you're saying it in the right way. Anger or sadness or being upset do not mix well with serious conversation. But say it's just a situation where it's just you and you're just angry or upset in general at the world or at life, or it's just everything's gone on top of you and you're like, oh fuck this, fuck everything. Simple things, a stress ball. They're fucking so effective. A small little ball, stick it in your hand, squeeze it away. That kind of sounded a little bit worse than I had intended it to, but you do get the point, I hope. Like, something, it doesn't even have to be a stress ball, a cushion, anything, just to squeeze, just to get, again, it's about getting that anger out in a safe way, in a controlled way. Putting on music. Now, normally, I know I have said in the past, if you're sad, don't listen to sad music. That's very fair. However, if you're angry, I don't think there's anything wrong with listening to angry music and dancing around and singing your heart out. I have a song, I know I've mentioned it before. It's by a band called Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes, and the song is called I Hate You, and it's literally just the man roaring and shouting for 3 minutes about how much he hates someone. Now, I'm not telling you that hate is a good emotion and is a good feeling to hold towards someone. Absolutely, it is not. However, it's a great song to get your anger out. Just put that on, bounce around, fucking jump around the place, scream at the top of your fucking lungs, because it's a great exercise for actually getting that emotion out. Heavy metal is normally the best way to go. If you're not really into heavy metal, I don't know, maybe there is country music. I don't really see how you can get anger out via like a man singing about like his farm and his dog. But again, that's probably a very sweeping generalization of country music, so I do apologize for that. Going for a walk genuinely helps. It does, just to, again, take those couple of minutes, get out, walk around, just clear the brain. One thing I genuinely have found very, very, very effective. I know I've talked about it before, and I've done this multiple times where I've gone somewhere outdoors and very secluded. And it has to be secluded, because otherwise people will definitely either freak out or judge you. Go somewhere and just fucking scream. Just scream. Scream words if you want. Just fucking say fucking ah. Obviously do it a little bit more, kind of with a bit more power behind it than just that. But it genuinely helps, because a lot of the time the reason why we feel so frustrated is because we don't have a way of getting it out for fear of being judged or for fear of saying something. So we hold it in. Holding in any emotion is not a good idea. Emotions are meant to be expressed. It's the whole point of them. Emotions are there so that people basically can pick up how it is that we feel. If we don't express them, people don't know. Feelings can't stay inside. Feelings are meant for the outside world. So if you're feeling really angry all the time and you're holding that shit in, that's just going to stay there and you're going to feel more tense. There is an extreme correlation between emotional and physical. If you're holding in anger all the time, your body will end up fucked. You'll end up really tense. You'll end up with fucking aches and pains. Your head will just be completely mangled. It won't be able to function, because all you'll feel is anger all the time. It'll create this sort of red mist or this fog in your head. So you have to be able to get them out. But obviously, especially when it comes to anger, we have to find ways of getting them out safely. Don't go around punching shit. Punch a punching bag, absolutely. Don't punch a wall. Basically, find something that works for you, that is safe for you and safe for others. I've given, again, a couple of bits that work for me. They may work for you, I don't know. But at least you can see where my thought process is coming from. So at the very least, if something that I have said specifically doesn't work for you, you might now have a better idea, or like a thought process, or like a line of thought to go down to maybe find something that does work for you. So let's just before I do go, everything you have just listened to was recorded last week. This bit has been recorded tonight, as in the 11th, the evening before this podcast comes out. So technically there's a sort of a time travel element involved, where you've been listening to past me and now you're listening to closer past me. Anyway, this week is Mental Health Awareness Week. And specifically yesterday was Mental Health Awareness Day. So I just wanted to come on and just do a small little extra bit. My relationship with mental health has always been quite strange. It's been quite long. Outside of family members, it's probably one of the longest relationships that I actually have. Has it been good? No. Would I change it? No. Without my mental health, good and bad, I would not be able to do this right now. I would not be able to sit here and have realized that I do have a talent, that I do have something that I am good at. I might not be necessarily book smart, but fuck me, can I talk about mental health. This whole journey of podcasting and TikToking and YouTubing and Instagramming and social media-ing has made me realize that I have such a beautiful creative brain. That is not me blowing smoke up my own hole. That is absolute fact. I have come out with terminologies and analogies that I've never heard anyone else come out with, and I fucking love my brain for that. And my brain would not be able to do that had it not gone through everything that it has gone through. There is absolutely nothing wrong with having mental health. Good, bad, or indifferent. Absolutely not. Especially this week, there's going to be so many quotes and pictures and posts shared, and you might see one of those this week and you might say, yeah, do you know what? I can do this. I can live with my mental health. I can learn to get on top of this. You might see the same post or picture maybe a few days later, and it might make you smile, and it might be like, yeah, no, I can do this. I can definitely do this, can't I? But there's also a very high chance that by the end of the week you will see the same thing, and your whole brain will have picked it apart and convinced you that it's bullshit. And the irony in that is that when you pick something apart like that, when it's mental health advice and you say, well, no, that doesn't work, it's not for me, and you pick it apart and it's bullshit, you convince yourself that you're the only person in the world that has ever gone through it. And you're not. There's not a single thought that you can have that someone else has not had at some point in their life in relation to mental health. I know how lonely it can be. I've been there too many times. I might be there again. I don't know. But I know that I'm not alone. And I know you might turn around and you might say, Horse, I get fuck all solace from the fact that other people go through this, because they don't have to live in my brain. And you're right. You're 110% right. Nobody else has to live in your brain, only you. So knowing that, why do you continue to be so hard on yourself? If you're the only one that has to live in your brain, why aren't you nicer to yourself? Why don't you cut yourself some slack? Let this week be the week that you realise that it's okay, and that you do not have to be so hard on yourself. You don't have to put so much pressure on yourself to the point that every couple of weeks you're getting overwhelmed and just physically can't do anything, can't eat, can't sleep. Everyone is on this planet for something. You have absolutely no idea of the impact that you might make on the world someday. So you owe it to yourself to stay here, to be the best version of yourself, and to prove that you are meant to be here for a reason. And more importantly than absolutely anything else I have said on this podcast, on any other podcast, or at any other point in my entire 26 years on this planet, mind yourselves.